Hey guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. We have the wonderful Emily Arndell joining us today, and we're going to be talking about testimonies in general. So today we just kind of want to talk about the power of testimonies and how an average testimony can still be powerful. So, Emily, give us a little bit of an overview of what brought you to Jesus.
I grew up in a Catholic household, so we had like Christian values and things like that, but not really practicing. It was just kind of like pretty normal family, I guess. And then towards the end of high school, I got invited to youth, so I started just attending youth. Probably the year after that, I started coming more regularly. And that's when it kind of became more than just like going to youth. Like there was something deeper, I guess. But at that moment, I didn't really realize what I was doing, kind of thing. It was just like I went, but didn't see the longer fruit of it. And then I think I went to like a Sunday service, and that's when I remember I officially gave my life to Jesus.
On a Sunday,
Yeah.
I would not have expected that.
I know, I'm just a real Christian. Most of my friendship group at church, the people that I started hanging out with when I first came, they were all like grew up Christian, like they had the whole good life. To me, that's what I'm like, oh, they've got it all together kind of thing. And I think I didn't really compare myself to them. I kind of just like thought they just knew a lot more and just had it more together because I was later on. I found myself, I compared myself more to people who had these really cool testimonies. It wasn't the people who just grew up in church. It was like, oh, they went through this, and now they're here. Or like I remember just like when there was like guest preachers, I think.
Oh my gosh,
they always like their family like had this, and I'm just like kind of
like a drug addiction.
Yeah.
This and
I was like, I never really went through anything like that, so it kind of made me feel like, oh, did I miss my opportunity? Did I miss my chance? Like, did I come to this Christianity thing too late? Like,
but like the similar testimony to you, like I grew up Catholic, the whole like decent family, Christian values were never really like practicing, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then you'd hear like these psycho testimonies, and I was like, jeez. And like the passion and the fire that they had, I always attributed to the fact that they went through something so bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can never get that passionate or that on fire for Jesus because I don't know what it's like to be so down.
Yeah, that was like me too. Like I felt like I would never be someone who could share my story
Yeah.
with other people because I'm like, I didn't really have that. I went through this, now I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, and I think there's a passion that comes with that.
Yeah.
So I was like, especially when I like got more into youth leading and things like that, I'm like, how am I meant to like inspire these girls? How am I to inspire these kids if I don't really, I'm just regular? I started to realize that like all those little moments with God by myself and just how God has consistently come through in my life. It hasn't been, even though it hasn't been like a high and a low, I've had highs and lows personally where I know God has come through, and even though people publicly don't see that, I know that He's consistently been there in every situation of my life. And I think it's not that anyone's testimony is better than anyone else, but I think that's a testimony in itself that God just continually shows up. I don't think God is a God of really big highs and lows all the time.
Yeah. Even
though He does come through in ways like that way for some people, I love that God is consistently in my life and I can always rely on Him. And when I get caught in that headspace of comparing my testimony to others, that's when my joy is completely robbed. So I think if you just focus on your own journey, like everyone's on their own journey, and although you might think your testimony is nothing, like your story, like I love that your story will always inspire someone else.
Yeah.
Just because you think your life is, I might tell someone my life, they're like, oh gosh.
You're
like, yeah. So I think just not comparing your testimony to others and just appreciate the moments that you have in private and where God has showed up. And yeah.
I also think that like quantifying moments is a very human thing to do. Like obviously being in a gang, drugs and stuff is a lot more dramatic than I guess what we went through.
Yeah.
But like even then, like quantifying how God can move in that, it's a very human thing to be like, oh, God moving in that situation was more than how He moved in our situation.
Yeah.
Whereas God's like, I'm just gonna move for my kids. It doesn't really matter about
How, when.
where, how dramatic or whatever.
Yeah, the ranking system kind of comes from us. It's
Yeah.
not like God thing.
Yeah. And I also think, like, those big dramatic moments, as beautiful and miraculous as they are, like, they're few and far between. Like, that's the minority.
Yeah.
And if we're called to reach the masses, I think we need those kinds of testimonies, the ones that do go through those big dramatic moments. And I think this is where, like, my self-justification comes in.
Yeah.
But I think it works, because, like, we need people who have gone through really, really intense situations to be able to minister to people in the situation.
Yeah.
But then, not that we're average, but now the title is just stuck. But like the everyday person who didn't go through anything overly dramatic or whatever, I think there's still power in that.
Yeah.
That like, because most people are just living their best life, hanging out, whatever. That there's a reason that they still need Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be so easy to be like, oh, my life is good, family's good, we have good values. Why do I need this Jesus person? But then we have people like you who know the difference between your life back then and now.
Yeah.
So like, on that, what's changed between like before? Because you lived quite a good life and had a good family, all that kind of stuff. And now that you know Jesus, like, what's changed?
There hasn't been a massive moment, which hurt for a long time,
Right.
which I kind of like, there was nothing that like, oh, I met Jesus. It's like,
Yeah.
it was nothing like that. But I think it's been little moments where I've noticed that I don't think I would have acted that way in the past. Like just say something like really bad happens, like in my life, like where I would usually get upset or angry, and that's okay to get upset or angry, but I think it's that whole like joy factor where I've just chosen joy.
Joy is a very Emily thing.
Like I think I'll see like my like family get really angry at something, and I get angry still a lot. don't get me wrong, but it's that moment after where they're still angry, and I'm like, everything I kind of happens for a reason. And I think it's been just a lot of moments like that where I've been in a situation where I'd usually like prolong an emotion, and it's kind of been that flick of the switch where back in the day I would have just been upset or angry for a period of time until it just kind of passed. It's actually pretty funny because like my DG, like now that I've gotten to know, I've had them for a few years now, and when I like started youth leading, that's when that whole thing of like, oh, I don't have anything to say, my testimony's so boring. But like my girls, like majority of them are pretty like, they grew up okay. Like none of them really have massive. So I think that's helped me learn that like my testimony is important. Like because now I'm leading a group of girls who are just like mini me. Like in terms of like, they've grown up reasonably okay.
Reasonably okay.
Like they've been in church. Like, you know what I mean? Like
reasonably okay is my favorite term. Bare minimum.
Great. I mean, great.
I'm kidding. So go.
And now I'm their leader, so it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it shows the importance of your testimony.
Like you can speak into that story and that narrative because that's where you came from.
That's where I came from.
You're
comes
relatable.
natural.
You're relatable.
Yeah.
That's the word I've been trying to find for the entire video.
Yeah, I think I'm a pretty consistent person, so I think that's God coming through in my life where I can be there for my girls, even in my family. Like I'm someone who's consistent in my feelings, consistent in showing up, like just showing up. Like I don't live with them. I think it's my testimony is definitely more than just average, because I think if I didn't met Jesus, my life would be very different now.
That like not everyone has to go to such a low point to find Jesus. He'll find you anywhere, kind of thing.
Yeah, that is true.
And like you can, if anyone's thinking
Every
about
day.
it, like future children of yours don't need to go through absolute like low points to be able to know who Jesus is.
Yeah, he shows up in, and I think that's also my testimony. Like when I met him, it was just random. Like he just showed up in a miraculous way, and that's just how he's consistently. Like with money and finance are the same thing. Just like my life with jobs, like he just always just shown up.
This is Emily. She's great. She does a little behind the scenes stuff for Elevate, and that was her story about her testimony.
We would love to hear yours. Just send it to our DMs.
Sure, do that. But yeah, cool. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.